recognize Senator Grassley.
Okay. I do this as a point of personal privilege, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate that courtesy of you and the members. This is the first meeting of the Senate Judiciary Committee in this 116th Congress. It's also the first time that we convene while my friend Lindsey holds the gavel and will proceed to be chairman. So I'd like to congratulate the new chairman, thank him for his leadership, and say that I look forward to working with you and other members of this committee as we seek to address some of our nation's most pressing problems. I have every confidence that you'll steer our 200-year-old committee in the right direction.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. In my view, nobody looks over 100, so we're actually we're aging well as a committee. The bottom line is, how do you get this job? Your colleagues have to vote for you. Thank you. You have to get reelected and outlive the person to your right. So I've been able to do that, and I look forward to working with Senator Feinstein, who I have a lot of affection and fondness for. She, to me, represents a seriousness that the body needs and a demeanor that I think we should all aspire to. To the new colleagues, Senator Hawley, Blackburn, and Ernst, thank you for being part of this committee. To Senator Blackburn and Ernst, thank you for making history, I think, on our side. As to the hopes and dreams for this committee, to get as much done as possible and to fight when we have to over things that matter to the public and show two different views of an issue that's important, but do it as respectfully as possible. Sentencing reform, criminal justice reform was a very big deal. And this committee delivered for the country. Senator Durbin, I want to thank you very, very much for working with Senator Lee and Senator Grassley and Senator Booker. That's a big deal that's going to change lives, I think, in a positive way. So this committee has within it the ability to do big things long overdue. I know Senator Blackburn wants to do something on social media. Senator Klobuchar's got some ideas about how to make sure if you put an ad up on social media, you have to stand by it. We're all worried about the social media platforms being hijacked by terrorists and bad actors throughout the international world. We're worried about privacy. Do you really know what you're signing up for when you get on one of these platforms? I'd like this committee working with Commerce to see if we can find some way to tame the Wild West. Intellectual property, Senator Tillis and Senator Coons have some ideas, and I look forward to hearing about. Senator Sass wants to make sure that we act ethically. You got a package of ethic reforms, and I look forward to working with you there. On this side, I know there are a lot of ideas that I'm sure that if we sat down and talked, we could embrace, and I look forward to solving as many problems as we can and having a contest over ideas that really matter to the American people. Senator Hatch, thank you for coming. In terms of my chairmanship, if I can do what you and Senator Grassley were able to do during your time, I will have done the committee a good service. Senator Grassley, thank you very much. Last year was tough, but I think you and Senator Feinstein did the best you could in the environment in which we live. The times in which we live are very difficult times. I don't see them getting better overnight, but I do see them getting better if we all want them to. So about me, I want us to do better, and I'll be as measured as possible. The immigration Lindsey will show up, but the other guy's there too, and I don't like him any more than you do. So the bottom line is we're starting off with something that would be good for the country. We have a vacancy for the Attorney General spot. We have a chance to fill that vacancy. Mr. Barr, you can't hold a job. When you look at what he's done in his life, it's incredible. So I want to thank the President for nominating somebody who is worthy of the job, who will understand on day one what the job is about, and can right the ship over there. I think we all have concerns. I know Senator Whitehouse is passionate about cybersecurity. and Fort Cyber and all these other ideas that Sheldon has been pushing. It's just a matter of time before we hit hard if somebody doesn't step up to the plate with some solutions. But a little bit about the nominee. He's been Attorney General before, from 91 to 93, by voice vote. Those were the days. Deputy Attorney General from 90 to 91, unanimous consent without a recorded vote. Assistant Attorney General, Office of Legal Counsel, voice vote. That's pretty amazing. I think you're going to have an actual vote this time. Academically gifted, George Washington Law School, Columbia University undergraduate. Outside of DOJ, he was the General Counsel, Legislative Counsel for the CIA. That's how he met Bush 41. He's been a law clerk. He's worked in private practice. I'm not going to bore the committee with all the things he's done. He's been the Senior Vice President, General Counsel of GTE. He's lived a consequential life, General Counsel for Verizon. You've lived a life that I think has been honorable and noteworthy and accomplished, and I want to thank you for being willing to take this task on. We got a lot of problems at the Department of Justice. I think morale is low, and we need to change that. So I look forward to this hearing. You will be challenged. You should be challenged. The memo, there'll be a lot of talk about it, as there should be. But I just want to let you know, Mr. Barr, that we appreciate you stepping up at a time when the country needs somebody of your background and your temperament to be in charge of the rule of law. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Senator Feinstein.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. And I want you to know I really look forward to working with
Me
you.
too.
And I think we can work productively together. And Senator Grassley, I want to thank you for the time we worked together. It really was a pleasure, and I had an opportunity to get to know you as the fine person that you are. So thank you very much. I want to say just one word or two or three about women. 25 years ago, there were no women on this committee. I'll never forget watching the Anita Hill hearing on a television in the London airport with a lot of people gathered around. So I went over to take a look, and I saw this all-male Judiciary Committee. And it took all these years, but here we are. And I want to particularly welcome Senator Ernst and Senator Blackburn. I think it's extraordinarily important that this committee be representative of our society at large, and we are growing that way. And so thank you very much for being here. I'd also like to welcome Bill Barr and his family. I know you're proud to be here, and you served as Attorney General before from 91 to 93, and I think we all have great respect for your commitment to public service. When we met, your previous tenure marked a very different, we talked about a very different time for our country. And today we find ourselves in a unique time with a different administration and different challenges. And now, perhaps more than ever before, the country needs someone who will uphold the rule of law, defend the independence of the Justice Department, and truly understand their job is to serve as the people's lawyer, not the president's lawyer. Top of mind for all of us is the ongoing Mueller investigation. Importantly, the Attorney General must be willing to resist political pressure and be committed to protecting this investigation. I'm pleased that in our private meeting, as well as in your written statement submitted to the committee, you stated that it's vitally important, and this is a quote, that the special counsel be allowed to complete his investigation, end quote, and that, quote, the public and Congress be informed of the results of the special counsel's work, end quote. However, there are at least two aspects of Mr. Mueller's investigation. First, Russian interference in the United States election, and whether any U.S. persons were involved in that interference. And second, possible obstruction of justice. It's the second component that you have written on. And just 5 months before you were nominated, I spent the weekend on your 19-page legal memo to Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein criticizing Mueller's investigation, specifically the investigation into potential obstruction of justice. In the memo, you conclude, I think, that Special Counsel Mueller is, quote, grossly irresponsible for pursuing an obstruction case against the president. And pursuing the obstruction inquiry is fatally misconceived. So I hope we can straighten that out in this hearing. But your memo also shows a large sweeping view of presidential authority and a determined effort, I thought, to undermine Bob Mueller, even though you state you have been friends and are in the dark about many of the facts of the investigation. So it does raise questions about your willingness to reach conclusions before knowing the facts and whether you prejudge the Mueller investigation. And I hope you'll make that clear today. It also raises a number of serious questions about your views on executive authority and whether the president is, in fact, above the law. For example, you wrote, "The president," and I quote, "alone is the executive branch. As such, he is the sole repository of all executive powers conferred by the Constitution. Thus, the full measure of law enforcement authority is placed in the president's hands, and no limit is placed on the kinds of cases subject to his control and supervision." This is in your memo on page 10, and I will ask you about it. This analysis included cases involving potential misconduct, where you concluded, and I quote, "The president may exercise his supervisory authority over cases dealing with his own interests, and the president transgresses no legal limitation when he does so." That's on page 12. In fact, you went so far as to conclude that, quote, "the framers' plan contemplates that the president's law enforcement powers extend to all matters, including those in which he has a personal stake." You also wrote, "The Constitution itself places no limit on the president's authority to act on matters which concern him or his own conduct," page 10. Later, you conceded that certain supervisory actions, such as the firing of Director Comey, may be unlawful obstruction. However, this too is qualified. You argue that in such a case, obstruction of justice occurs only if first a prosecutor proves that the president or his aides colluded with Russia. Specifically, you conclude, and I quote, "The issue of obstruction only becomes ripe after the alleged collusion by the president or his campaign is established first," end quote. So that's some of the things I hope to ask you about. And in conclusion, let me just say that some of your past statements on the role of Attorney General and presidential power are concerning. For instance, you've said in the past that the Attorney General is the president's lawyer. In November of 2017, you made comments suggesting it would be permissible for the president to direct the Justice Department to open an investigation into his political opponents. And this is notable in light of President Trump's repeated calls for the investigation of Hillary Clinton and others who disagree with him. I believe it's important that the next Attorney General be able to strongly resist pressure, whether from the administration or Congress, to conduct investigations for political purposes. He must have the integrity, the strength, and the fortitude to tell the president no, regardless of the consequences. In short, he must be willing to defend the independence of the Justice Department. So my questions will be, do you have that strength and commitment to be independent of the White House pressures you will undoubtedly face? Will you protect the integrity of the Justice Department above all else? Thank you very much, Mr.